Good morning, comrades, and massive solidarity and respect to everybody out there demonstrating to save our NHS on Saturday, February the 3rd. I'm hoping that this will be properly covered by the media. I doubt that the numbers will be fully explained, but nonetheless, what does it matter? We know we're there. We know we're fighting to save the NHS. We know we will be noticed. And again, we say to people, look at what the front end workers and service users are saying. Ignore the Tory propaganda. Ignore the Berkshire hunt. Ignore everything that you read in the mainstream media and you see on mainstream media in television, print, and of course in social media. So beginning with that, massive respect for you all, solidarity with all demonstrating to save our NHS this morning and the rest of the day. Now to what I want to talk about. I've just started Stephen Sutti's book, The Final Cut. Again, it's a fiction, but I think anyone who reads it will find a tremendous amount about what is happening in the social security system today. I want to take just one scene from very near the beginning of the book, read it, and then compare and contrast it with the same scene set in The Ragged Trousered Philanthropists, written over 100 years ago. And I'd like you just to ask what's changed. And if anyone thinks there is anything inaccurate in this account that Stephen Sutti gives, well, actually, I think you'll find it's pretty much the same job centre wise. Here is the main character going for the so-called review appointment with his work coach. Morning, he said. Morning. John passed the lady his job search diary, which itemised all of his attempts to find work since he had last signed on. There were dozens of records of phone calls, letters sent, applications posted, but the lady didn't look at it. Mr. Smith, it says that you promised that Mr. Smith, it says that you missed an appointment with your job coach on Wednesday last week. John looked shocked. He had to think for a minute. He remembered what had happened. Oh no, I was on an interview. A job interview? Yes, for the caretaker position at the Hart's Head High. She looked up at him with an inquisitive expression. I don't get it. John looked disappointed about the unsuccessful application, but he was more concerned with what the computer was saying, that he'd missed an appointment with his job coach. It was his job coach who had arranged the interview for him. Didn't make any sense. Did you ring the job centre to inform us that you would not be able to attend your appointment? No, well, I mean, it was obvious if I was being sent for an interview that you arranged. But Mr. Smith, it clearly states in your contract that you must inform us in plenty of time if you're unable to attend an appointment. Yes, well, I know that, but obviously I'm afraid you've broken the rules of your contract, Mr. Smith. You will have to face a 13-week sanction. John Smith smiled. This was clearly a joke. He'd heard about these sanctions where you do a tiny little bit of your unemployment benefit was stopped if you didn't follow the rules. His wife Sally was so frightened of the sanctions that she always made double sure that his paperwork was spot on the night before each of his appointments. You guys told me to go to the interview. Chris, my job coach, he arranged it. Ask him, he'll confirm it. Even Chris knows that I can't be in two places at once. John was still smiling. He knew this was just an error. It would soon be sorted. Mr. Smith, I feel we are going round in circles here. Did you phone us at the number on your contract to inform us that you were not going to be able to attend your appointment? Well, no, of course I didn't. I've just said. And that's why we have no alternative but to take the action that we are taking. As a consequence of breaking the rules of your contract, you won't be able to claim job seekers for another 13 weeks. John looked totally lost. He was beginning to realise that this wasn't a joke. He was starting to understand that this stony-faced young woman was being completely serious. I can't, I've got 2 kids, my wife. How am I going? We can give you a leaflet about the process. It will include details of how to apply for food banks as well. John couldn't take this in. He sat looking dazed for a minute. How the hell was he going to tell Sally about the money? How the hell was he going to tell Sally that the money they could get, that they could hardly get by on already, had been stopped for 3 months? Wait, can I talk to somebody else? The manager? Please, give me a manager. This is just a mistake. If you read this leaflet, it will explain to you how you can appeal against the decision. If you feel you've been treated unfairly. But I must inform you that appeals cannot be heard until after the sanction period has ended. The woman sounded like a robot. She couldn't give a shit about John or his family or his problems. He took the pamphlet, stood, and walked out of there, unwilling to let her see the tears that were forming in his eyes. They were tears of pure rage, helplessness, and humiliation. Think about that, by the way. If you are demonstrating to save our NHS, you're probably going to be treating a lot of people who've been practically driven to suicide, maybe people like John in that fictional account. Now here's another account from Philanthropists, and same kind of thing. This particular ordinary worker has had to apply for what in those days I think would have been called public assistance. Not written in the same style, obviously, and I think it's quite an interesting thing to compare something that was happening over 100 years ago with the case that I've just read from John Sutti's book, which, as I say, you can get online. They have to appear here in front of some kind of judge for a sort of tribunal, and it literally is like appearing in front of a judge. And Tressel says the person is treated like a culprit. Yep. I think John was being treated like a culprit in that bit of fiction, don't you? How many of you have experienced being treated by the DWP like a culprit? Interesting thought. Think about the word culprit. Maybe apply it in both situations. Now here's Tressel's account. It's not quite so long, but I'll read it just straight from the page, okay? What's your name? Where do you live? How long have you been living there? Where did you live before you went there? How long were you living at that place? Why did you move? Do you only rent? Did you only rent when you left? What was your previous address? How old are you? When was your last birthday? What is your trade, calling, employment, or occupation? Are you married or single or a widower or what? How many children do you have? How many boys? How many girls? Do they go to work? What do they earn? What kind of a house do you live in? How many rooms are there? How much rent do you owe? Who was your last employer? What was the foreman's name? How long did you work there? What kind of work did you do? Why did you leave? What have you been doing for the last 5 years? What kind of work? How many hours a day? What wages did you get? Give full names and addresses of all different employers you have worked for during the last 5 years and reasons why you left them. Give the names and addresses of the foremen you have worked under during the last 5 years. Does your wife earn anything? How much? Do you get any money from any club or society, or from any charity or any other source? Have you ever received relief before? Have you ever worked for the distress committee before? Have you ever done any kinds of work other than those you have mentioned? Do you think you would be fit for work of another kind? Have you any references? And so on and so forth. When, and this is the bit that I particularly like, when the criminal had answered all the questions, and when his answers had been duly written down, he was informed that a member of the committee, or an authorised officer or other person, would in due course visit his home and make inquiries about him, after which the authorised officer or other person would make a report to the committee, who would consider it at their next meeting. Tell me, what's changed? Yeah? Written over 100 years ago. Yeah? Over 100 years ago. I think about 104, because it was published after his death, when actually I believe his daughter found the text. Yeah? And John Sutti's novel, Side by Side. Yeah? What's changed? What's changed in over 104 years? Thanks for listening. I would strongly recommend reading The Final Cut by John Sutti. Get it on Amazon now. You may have to pay just a tiny, tiny charge to have it delivered to your Kindle or electronic device. Otherwise, the novel is free. Thanks for listening. And again, support to everyone protesting to save our NHS this Saturday. Have a great day.